Good evening. I'm told it's 6 o'clock and I need to get started. So, welcome to the 2025 Fiondella Lecture and Student Academic Achievement Award Ceremony. My name is Dr. Sharon Ann Murphy, Professor of History and Classics and Director of the Development of Western Civilization program. This evening, I'm excited to welcome you all, and with great excitement, extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guest, Catherine Sullivan, a humanities major from the class of 1987. By way of professional accomplishment and personal example, Catherine Sullivan, Providence College alumna and distinguished leader in media, marketing, and ad tech, currently serves as President of Sales, Marketing, and Partnerships at National Cinemedia, a media company that operates the largest in-theater advertising network in the US. Catherine is a wonderful example of the possibilities open to our students when one uses a liberal arts education as a pathway to different career opportunities. Thanks to the generosity of Bob Fiondella, a member of the class of 1964 and 2016 honorary degree recipient, and his wife, Carolyn, PC has welcomed numerous esteemed speakers who have inspired us, students and faculty alike, with topics and themes underscoring the importance and influence of a foundation in the humanities to the study of business and other disciplines in preparation for successful career pursuits. Bob and Carolyn are also proud grandparents of two PC graduates, RJ and Andrew. Before we begin, I would like to invite Father Thomas Moore Garrett, OP, JD, Executive Vice President for Mission and Chief Operating Officer of the college, to bring greetings from college leadership, as well as our Dominican community.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy, and welcome back, Catherine, to Providence College. 1987 maybe doesn't seem so long ago. To some of you, a few of you anyway. Let me first acknowledge all of those who worked so hard to organize this presentation, including our lecture committee, especially Dr. Joan Branham, Dr. Jackie Elsick, Dr. Sharon Murphy, and Kelsey Tabella Baxter. I also want to extend my gratitude to Bob and Carolyn Fiondella for establishing this lecture series and student award. This series draws attention to PC's core academic purpose, providing an education rooted in the humanities that prepares its graduates to accomplish great things. The Fiondella lecture speakers have shared personal stories that demonstrate the value of a liberal arts education grounded in the Dominican tradition. Time after time, and I have had personal experience with this, and I'm willing to bet that this will happen to some of you in this room. Time after time, alumni after leaving here at alumni events and other socials will offer accounts of unexpected turns and challenges they have faced in the development of their respective careers. It may sound strange to you right now, but it is rather typical for many of them to reference their foundational education in the humanities, the liberal arts, and especially DWC as a contributing feature to their ability to adapt. This award is given to a student who exemplifies achievement in studies combining the humanities and business. And I'm only standing here because Father Sicard is out of town, but his unavailability is my good fortune. Why? Because I'm especially excited to have known and worked with this year's awardee, who has been my advisee for the last 3 years or so. So I would like to invite Dr. Murphy back to the podium to present the award.
This year's recipient of the Fiondella Student Academic Achievement Award is Kevin Bongiorno. Kevin is a double major in theater and management. Described as an outstanding student, his professors remarked on how eager he is to continue to find ways to combine the work of both of his majors now and in the future. Kevin is looking into the business and administrative areas of the arts and how they intersect. Among his many, many accomplishments, Kevin is president of the wildly popular Six Gents sketch comedy club, which writes original material and performs for sold-out crowds once a month in the Angel Blackfriars Theater, which holds almost 300 students. Kevin is also the musical director for an a cappella club, which also performs for big crowds. He organizes meetings and works on the teaching and writing side of the musical orchestrations. Kevin organized a story cycle musical theater performance with his peers, which he directed and performed for his senior capstone last fall. He also performed in other senior projects for his classmates, including a recent performance as Frankenstein's monster in a student-directed production of Frankenstein. I had the privilege of taking my entire class to see this production, and he was brilliant in quite a challenging role. According to one theater professor, quote, "I always marvel at how ambitious he is and the quality of everything he involves himself in. He has a great personality and an exceptional work ethic, as he demonstrated by the scope and quality of the many, many projects he has been a driving force within this year." Another management professor remarked that, quote, "Kevin genuinely possesses an interest in the synthesis between a field that he loves and another that he might use to popularize and share that affection with others. He exemplifies a unique path of academic experience that PC can offer." An exemplary member of our community who, as you have heard, is a worthy recipient of this distinguished award, please join me in welcoming Kevin Bongiorno, class of 2025, to the podium to accept the 2025 Fiondella Student Academic Achievement Award. If I have something I'm supposed to give him. Congratulations once again, Kevin. I knew there was a check somewhere. I just didn't know where it was buried. Yeah. It is now my pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker. You will quickly find she is equally as impressive as Kevin. Catherine Sullivan is a proud class of 1987 Providence College alum who graduated with a degree in humanities. She was also a member of the swim team. As a distinguished leader in media, marketing, and ad tech, Catherine currently serves as President of Sales, Marketing, and Partnerships at National Cinemedia. Since joining NCM in May 2024, she has driven innovative strategies to connect brands with audiences through the power of cinema, ensuring impactful and measurable advertising outcomes. And we didn't plan that you would have someone in the arts that, to win the award with the speaker, but it worked out well. Catherine's career spans a series of executive leadership roles across prominent media and marketing organizations. Before her tenure at NCM, she served as CEO of PhD Media US, where she revolutionized the agency's operations, fostering a culture of innovation and achieving unparalleled growth. Under her leadership, PhD Media US became a leader in media planning and buying, renowned for its groundbreaking campaigns. Previously, Catherine held the role of Chief Investment Officer at Omnicom Media Group, where she guided investment strategies across agencies like OMD, PhD, and Hearts and Science. Her visionary leadership optimized client outcomes and earned her recognition as a transformative force in the industry. Please join me in welcoming Catherine Sullivan to the podium.
Tuesday, right? Thank you all for being here. I know there's a lot of other places you could be, so thank you for joining. I think there's a clicker remote here somewhere. Yes, maybe, or not. I don't really need it. It's just up there in case somebody, I was gonna, oh, there are? Allow me. Here we go. Knock on a lot of the clickers today. Let's see. We'll try it. Forward. Am I pointing at anything in particular? I'll leave this for now, and I'm going to start just talking to you, and then we'll figure out where we go from here. Oh, right here. There we go. Okay. No. You know, don't worry. I don't really love slides to begin with, so we'll leave it for now. But when I look back on this, right, power of a liberal arts education, when I think about my time here at Providence, I didn't know how valuable, to Father's comments earlier, how the critical thinking that a liberal arts education gives you. The minute you graduate from here and get your first job, no one's ever, ever, ever going to ask you anything about major. You're going to ask you about your GPA. People will ask you where you went to school and things like that. But the thing that I really took from the school, you may hate me for saying this, but Western Civ was my favorite class. The most difficult class, but the class that I still actually, almost 40 years later, have my notebook. It is something that I promise you, you will take. And in those moments, as Father said, when you are at loss about what's next or a problem you can't solve, it's the critical thinking that you've learned from a liberal arts education. I think when I went to grammar school and high school, I grew up on Long Island, I went to Catholic school, you studied, you took a test, you passed, and you went on. You never thought, right? You had to memorize, you got your A, and you moved on. You never really actually clicked in on the learning until I got here. This is when the learning kicked in. So as hard as Western Civ is, and days you want to like pull your hair out of your head, it is a class that will stick with you, that will make you realize the power of thinking. And so when I think about my career, it's not because I was a humanities major and not a business major. It wasn't because I had a liberal arts education. It was the combination of those things, my family believing in me, being an athlete and playing sports, whatever it is that your passion is, do it. But all of that collectively forms you and allows you to win. And I do think that there's some thoughts that I have. Let's see if I can, oh no, it's not this. I keep wanting to do this. Okay, so I think about my career, very diverse. Like nobody would ever say, hey, I'm gonna graduate. My entire family's on Wall Street, by the way. I am the black sheep of the family. It's 1987. For those who haven't heard me talk today, I came here to swim. And my cousin is Billy Donovan. So he follows me here. And by the way, he followed me because I got in here first, and they had me here first. And of course, all those schools all across the country, and Billy had to follow me. So we get here, it's 1987. I have been interning on Wall Street. I just assume I'm gonna follow in everyone's footsteps. It's the expectation. And I'm at the Final Four, and Billy has to go to this ESPN party. And he's like, I can't go by myself. Can you imagine that, Billy? You can talk to anybody now, but was very shy when he was here at Providence. And I go to this ESPN party, and I meet these two guys. One was in the MBA program at Merrill and worked for my father. The other one was his college roommate, who was the producer for Monday Night Baseball. He said to me, wait, you're a swimmer? Your cousin's Billy Donovan? Oh, wait a minute, and your brother plays tennis at Clemson, and he's number 4 in the country? Oh, we need women in sports. I mean, you could say things back then that wouldn't get you in trouble. We just need to hire women, so would you actually come and work with us? And I was like, I mean, I'll try it, right, for the summer, why not? My father's like, what is wrong with you? You're in the training program at Merrill, this is what you need to do. But it was that somewhat critical thinking, wanting to explore, wanting to think differently. I was like, you know what, I don't know that I want to be in finance. I don't really know. And this guy said to me very simply, you can go sell stocks and bonds for the rest of your life, or if you love to read, if you love sports, and you love movies, then you should think about this thing called media and advertising, because it really all comes together there. So that was back in the day, the dinosaur, back in the late 80s, when none of you were even a thought to your parents. And my career sort of vacillated from starting at NBC, so I started in sports production. I was a little too early for that. They really didn't want women in sports yet. They were kind of like, you're not really our type. There was a bunch of 12 guys in the room and me, and I was like, where are all the women? They're like, oh, you're going to want to have kids one day. You're not going to want to be with a bunch of guys traveling on the weekend. I was like, okay, whatever. So I went into sales, was at NBC, then I went over to Disney. Disney had just bought ABC from Cap Cities. There for 16 years, ran news sales, digital, and that was a fantastic job. It was actually when people trusted news, and it was a time when things were a little bit different than they are today. Then in 2016, I get a phone call from Omnicom, who is one of our biggest clients, the second largest holding company in the country. And they're like, we want to hire you. I'm like, no. I mean, what would I do at an advertising agency? I mean, I've been in sales this whole time. But again, I wasn't afraid because I learned here how to think. So even though I didn't have the solutions, even though I didn't have the background in any capacity, nor did anyone that was at Omnicom think that I should be leading this team of 1,800 people that represented $20 billion in advertising spend in the US. But in the back of my head, I was like, if not now, when? When am I going to try this? Why not try it? Pivot, make a turn, make a very sharp left turn in your career because you could see the business was changing. At the time, we were doing 5, 10-year plans at Disney. None of it made any sense. You could never have predicted the impact of the iPhone back in the early 2000s. You couldn't predict the iPad. What was then taking 2 to 3 years for things to click and move on, like you would see an iPhone comes in. Mass distribution of it took 2 to 5 years. It took 3 months for TikTok. You fast forward to now. 3 months for TikTok to become a global sensation. That's the rate of change that things are happening. Without critical thinking, you can't keep up with what's happening here. You can't keep up. And what I would say to you is no matter what your major is and all these other schools, and this is what's happening, right? The big are getting bigger. We call them the Death Stars. I'm going to take you on a slide in a second. But all the change and all these headlines of what's happening in media and advertising, what's happening in marketing, all the choices. This leveraging your net worth, right? Your ability to leverage your net worth is not only who you know, it's how you think, right? So it's the networking. It's not what you do between 9 and 5 that's only important. It's what you do between 5 and 9. It's not just about how you think. It's who you interact with. Who are your friends? Who do you start to get to know? Are you willing to reach out to somebody who's in a different area than you and start to really understand what they're doing? Raise your hand, be the first one in, the last one out, help on projects, right? But the way I think about it is leveraging not just yourself, but your network. Because if you only stay in a company, and if I only had stayed at NBC all this time, I wouldn't have seen all the other things that were happening on outside of the walls. My dad went to PC and worked at Merrill for 40 years. That's never going to happen again. It's just not. And quite frankly, in some cases, frowned upon because you're not seeing what's actually happening. It's good to lift your head up, take a look out and see what's going on. This is what keeps me up at night. So there's a guy called Eshap. He's on the bottom here. If you can see the QR code, definitely click into it. So he is a cartographer, and he literally every 3 months has been updating this for about 5 years. It used to be that there was, the big media companies. And just to give you some of the change that's happened during COVID, Disney, Warner Brothers, Fox, Paramount, who am I missing? NBCU, are worth $381 billion combined. Netflix is currently at $419 billion. That happened in 5 years. The collapse of the biggest media companies overtaken by Netflix. We call these guys on the corners the Death Stars, the big guys. These are all the big platforms that get to grade their own homework. So if you work at Google, you work at Meta, you're these big, massive companies that, guess what their pitch is to you? Oh, if you spend more money with me, you're going to get better results. Really? Fascinating. But they have all this technology and this full circle attribution, and Amazon now has stepped in and is changing everything. They're literally a flywheel from everything. They get you at every single point of your day. Think of how many times, whether you're watching shows there, you're shopping, by the way, you think about what's happening with Google. Everyone used to type into Google to search things. But if 75% of your purchases are happening online at Amazon, How long do you think before that impacts Google's business? So everybody's fighting. Those 6 players control 71% of the entire advertising market ecosystem. Everyone else in this picture is trying to fight for the rest of the money. So what you're seeing is this crazy, crazy transformation of tech coming into what traditionally was advertising and marketing. So as I said in a couple of the marketing classes I taught earlier today, lean into ad tech, lean into the data. You don't have to be a math major, you don't have to love even math, but you have to be curious. It goes back to critical thinking. If you are gonna work for a brand, or you're gonna work at an agency, or wherever you wanna take your marketing prowess, you have to be able to prove out those data points. Specifically meaning that you could say, wow, I've come up with this great creative campaign that we're gonna do for McDonald's. But the CMO of McDonald's has to go prove out the money that he's just spent to the CFO and the head of procurement. The more data and attribution you can give to the why that worked and how many more burgers they sold, the more money you can then get from the company to reinvest into advertising. So AI is kind of showing right down everyone's face right now. Everyone thinks it's sort of fun to play with, but it's not, it's here. It could be a foe if you want to be complacent. The thing I tell everybody, which was told to me early in my career, get comfortable being uncomfortable. The minute you come complacent, you're done. Always be nervous, always want more, always push yourself, because if you're not, somebody else is. And it's really important to do that. And as I said, it's not just the 9 to 5 that you showed up, you did your job, it's that 5 to 9. Did you do the networking? Are you meeting people? Are you talking to people in different disciplines that can help you learn and lean in to be smarter, to be better? That work is incredibly, incredibly important. So, I know, this was my team who did this, so I apologize. I don't really need to see a picture of myself up on a screen. I didn't even realize that was here. But it truly is, right? You have to just keep edging and kind of going back and forth. Live on the edge a little bit, take turns, don't be afraid. Your career path is never going to be a straight line to whatever your dream of a job is. And you may not even know, ultimately, I knew I wanted to be a CEO. So I didn't know how I was going to get there. But if that's your goal, then you got to set it. And I think I told the marketing class earlier today, I don't know about all of you, but like Tom Brady was the greatest quarterback, right? But who actually thought he was going to be good as a commentator? I mean, we were joking about it in our house. My son, all my kids were like, that guy is going to bomb for the first time in his life. He's going to be terrible. Who's terribly surprised at how good Tom Brady is? I think he's improved substantially. You can raise your hand, it's not gonna kill you. You're allowed to interact. This is not you just sitting here like, I would say to you, like, the reason why he's good isn't because he's exceptional at anything, and he's the first person to say that. If you listen to any of his quotes, what he says is, I have tremendous discipline, and I just am repetitive, and I make sure I do the same thing over and over again. So discipline, perseverance are qualities that get you from here to there, that make you stand out in the pack. So how do you stand out? You show up. You dress for the part, by the way. Like I joke all the time. Like when I ran an agency, the average age was 27. And getting these kids back to work post-COVID, I was like, okay, maybe we can leave our pajamas and our Uggs at home. We can like comb our hair and maybe put on a pair of pants and maybe put on a pair of shoes. It's not gonna kill you. But like, God forbid a client walked in here. Like, I need you to kind of show up a little bit. And, you know, they'd laugh a little bit with me, but I was like, you seriously need to show up. So anyway, in short, the education that you are getting here is something that you will rely on 10 years out, 20 years out, almost 40 years out. This liberal arts education, you don't realize how lucky you are. Because again, the things that are going to come at you, regardless of what company you work for, regardless of what career you actually end up in, what is going to separate you is your ability to think, your ability to problem solve, and your ability to not just conform. And someone says, oh, here's the answer, and you just go, oh, okay. No, question it. Question it. Is it right? Am I doing this right? Are they doing it right? Is it a different way to think about it? It's okay to challenge, as long as you're respectful, but challenge. But that's what they're teaching you here, and it's invaluable. So Please embrace it. I know Civ is really difficult, but I will tell you, take it with you. It will follow you. It will be the one thing that something will happen or a question will be asked, and you will look like the smartest person in the room because you will have remembered that class. You probably stayed up till 4 in the morning to study for the test, but you'll remember it and say, and everyone's like, wow, that kid's really smart. But that's the critical thinking. That's what Providence does, and it's also the camaraderie amongst all of you. You don't see what PC has in that fire spirit. You don't see that on other campuses. You have something very special here. Take it with you. And take each other with you along for the ride. I can't tell you how many kids from PC reach out to me on LinkedIn, how many people here in the faculty have reached out to me, can you help? We all help. And that's what you will do when you leave here. You will help each other, you will lift each other, and bring each other along for the ride. Enjoy it. It's a great time here, and thank you.
So we have plenty of time. Thanks for that great talk. We have plenty of time for questions. I have a few that can get us started, but we also want to have audience questions as well. So please, I think Kelsey's running around with a microphone, I believe. So please raise your hand if you have a question, but I'm going to start us off with one. So what do you think are the most important skills for students looking to enter into media, marketing, or advertising? And how can they use their liberal arts background to set them apart in going into this field?
I think it's a lot. Sorry, can you hear me with this? I think a lot of it is that critical thinking that we've been talking about. I do think so much of education is being talked to and talked at, and doesn't allow you enough time to think and respond, right? So I think that a lot of what happens here is different than a lot of other schools, especially when the bigger they get. There's these massive classrooms, and there's no interaction, and there's no real critical thinking. I can't emphasize enough, when I meet somebody, and I get, all walks of life. So when I was running an agency, I had people from marketing science, so very, very high math background, very high EQ in math. We then had planning people, so they had to be good in math, but they also had to be very, pretty analytical in terms of the way they thought about it. They had to be really curious about the brand. So curiosity is something that I think regardless of what field you go in, is really important to have curiosity about not only the company you work for, but everything that surrounds it in the ecosystem. That slide I had up before. It's important that all of those things sort of come together. So be curious, think, and as you're interviewing and you're leaving here to go interview for a job, obviously show up and be present. But it's also about asking the questions, but the questions have to be pertinent. I had a company, a COO of a company, of a very, very, very big company, walk in when I was running investment saying, so Catherine, tell me about your clients and what your needs are at Omnicom. I was like, how about this? How about you go back to your office, go look up some of my clients, research, tell me what you think you can do to help my business, and then I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you. But otherwise, you're completely wasting my time. So as you go in to interview, don't be that person to so tell me all about your company. No, know about the company. Know about who they are. Ask them questions. Everyone loves to talk about themselves, right? Just dig right in, ask them about their family. What do they like? Do they like to play tennis? Do you play golf? Whatever it may be. Lean in, but you've got to know something. Don't walk in and be like, hey, so tell me everything. No. Be thoughtful. Be thoughtful. And by the way, how about writing a thank you note? Thanking the people that took the time out of their day. The person that's from Providence that connected you to the interview for the job, write them a note. Don't write them a text. Don't text them. Write them a note. If you can't write a note, send them an email. But one of those two things, please do. And do that even after the interview. And if you don't get the job, even follow back up and say, hey, tell me more. I'd love to know, is there other opportunities? Why I didn't get the job? People want to know that you care. You care about what they're doing. And I think those are ways that you can really differentiate yourselves. It's like the most simple, basic things that I'm sure your parents have all taught you that we all seem to forget. And I think COVID really impacted all of us so terribly. We have forgotten the art of communication and the ability to shake a hand firmly, look someone in the eye, thank them. Very simple, simple things. But it's been lost. So be that person and show up. Like, I can't emphasize enough showing up. Sounds very simple, but it seems to be very difficult these days.
So another question I have, looking around to see if any students have questions. Can you share a project or campaign you're particularly proud of and how your problem-solving skills played a role in its success?
There's a lot.
I'm giving you the difficult ones.
Yeah, that's okay. You're allowed to give me the difficult ones. So Red Bull was a client. It was one of our first wins when I first got to PhD. I think everybody knows Red Bull, right? They're a great client. They're a $100 million client that acted like a $1 billion client. So P&G is a $1 billion client, right? They require hundreds of people across their, swath of brands that they represent. In the case of Red Bull, it's a very much smaller piece of business, but it operates at that very high velocity in terms of how they were using their mathematical equation inside of their organization. So they were changing out copy and literally doing, in some cases, as many iterations of creative as a P&G, which would have 64 brands on at any time, and they had 2. So trying to manage, a company that required that high touch, but didn't have the money that we would get as a fee. So, really kind of leaning in and finding, okay, I need really having to unwind the entire team. Like, what they had said they wanted was really absolutely nothing that they actually needed. And so part of it was on us to then go in there and say, okay, all right, what do you need? Like, how are we actually going to do this? And it was really changing out, creating a lot more marketing science people because they were so steeped in their own mechanics and machines that we needed people that could get in there to really help them. That's one. That's really much more in the science. I think probably my favorite, and for those of you that were in my marketing class, I apologize, but my favorite, the thing that sort of landed me and really propelled my career was in the late 80s, I was in regional ad sales at NBC. And it was sort of this business development group where if you didn't have national distribution, the FCC still required the big media companies to allow advertising. So think of your regional dealership on the East Coast matched up with a retailer on the West Coast and then someone in the middle. So there was this very small company at the time called Walmart that absolutely nobody was paying attention to. And I kept watching it, and I was reading the journal, and I kept reading all the articles on it, and I kept taking this map out. And the bigger they got, I kept saying, oh, they opened up another one, they opened up another one. And finally I was like, oh, from a financial perspective, it would make more sense for these guys not to buy local TV, but to actually buy regional. So I walk into my boss's boss and say, hey, I think I'm 24 at the time. And I was like, hey, I have this idea. There's this company called Walmart. And he's like, Walmart? And I was like, yeah, it's in Arkansas. And like, I just want to go down there and just tell them about regional TV. And the guy's like, go ahead, kid. Knock yourself out. I call my dad, who also a PC alum. He was in Wall Street at Merrill at the time. And I said to him, I'm like, there's this company, Walmart. He goes, oh, keep tracking that one. This thing's going to blow up and explode. I'm like, great. I'm going down to Arkansas. He goes, you? With who? I go, no one. He goes, oh, okay, great. Good luck, great. So I get down there. I pitch an idea for them to do this regional campaign with us. These people don't crack a smile, literally like all of you right now. It was terrifying, except I was 24, so I was petrified. Now I'm not petrified of any of you. Well, sometimes I am, honestly. When there's a lot of you like this, I do get a little nervous. And I pitch this whole story. No one says a word to me. I leave. A week later, I get a phone call from the lead woman who was literally like stone cold staring at me. She's like, we'd like to give you $1 million. And I was like, trying to not, thank God there was like no voice. It was just a phone. I was like, oh, great. Within 2 years, they were the second largest client at NBC, and the story now goes of who Walmart is. But they had never seen anybody from any media company ever come down to talk to them. Again, this 24-year-old kid shows up, pitches them, and it literally launched my career. So my point to that story is simply always do your homework. Pay attention. Read everything. Read the journal. Read Barron's. Read Ad Age. Read, Wired, Media Post. Every single rag that you can get your hand on, read. Read all the quarterly earnings for all those companies. Understand what's happening to that Death Star group that I showed you before, because they're changing. And as they iterate and come into other businesses, they're completely upending the business. So just pay attention and find that little sliver of space that nobody else is thinking about. It's there. There's kids right now in a garage building something, right, that we don't even know about. That will be the next TikTok and the next AI product that we don't even know exists. But it's happening. So be that kid.
Still looking for some questions from out there. I see. Dean Watkins.
Thank you so much for that talk. That was wonderful. And I love that you said that you kept your Civ notebook. I have a large collection of notebooks myself. I'm curious, is there a text or a book that has similarly stayed with you over the years and been important for you in some way? Doesn't have to be from Civ.
No, I don't think it was from Civ. I'd have to be honest on that. I mean, from my childhood, it's James and the Giant Peach. As an adult, a book that stayed with me is certainly the founder of Nike. Just Do It. When he, what was it called? I'm actually blanking. It's not Just Do It. The name of the book is, I can't remember. But it's the founder of Nike. His story of going back to the Tom Brady story, where you're not like, he said, like, I'm not exceptional, but I had an idea, in this case, founder of Nike, and he just kept going after it, like just kept going. If you haven't, and I'll look it up before we leave here, but his perseverance with an idea when everyone said no, or Kevin Plank, when he founded his company. When you think about great founders, it's because they were working and they had an idea and they just kept going. So Kevin and Under Armour, Nike, like those companies, read those stories about those founders. It's just an idea that, Starbucks, right? I mean, who needed another coffee company? I mean, everybody thought he was crazy. Everyone thought Schultz was out of his mind. Can you now ever, like, I crave Starbucks like an idiot. Like, you pay $6 for a cup of coffee because that's what we do. But, like, think about that. And when I was growing up, everyone was like, what is this guy thinking about? Who wants more coffee? But that's the power of marketing. That's the power of perseverance. That's the power of actually having something and saying, this is going to be different, even though there's already 20 different types of shoes out there or 20 different types of coffee. My idea is better. And that's sort of sticking with it. So I feel like those type of books, Dean, is like really, that's what you got to find. Like something, and for me, I can't think of in particular, Pillars of the Earth, if I was going to go non-business. Pillars of the Earth is the one book that totally stayed with me, that till this day is my favorite adult book that I've ever read. But from a business perspective, I just think those founder books really kind of get at me.
Other questions out here?
Now, don't all jump at once. You're driving me crazy. Too many people here. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So the question was, how do you, when you're at a job, right, how do you know when it's time to go? Well, I can actually answer that firsthand. So I was at Omnicom, running investment. It's the middle of the or the beginning of the pandemic. They asked me to pivot to run one of their agencies. I did it very reluctantly. It's not what I wanted to do. Not that I didn't want to be a CEO. A CEO of an agency was sort of not really where my head was at, but it's the pandemic. Everyone just did whatever was asked of them at the time. You didn't want to let your team down in any capacity. And then two of the most senior people moved on to OMC, which is now a completely separate entity, but it's the actual, how the exchange, that's how we actually trade our stock is through OMC. So they leave and new people come in. A guy comes in from Germany, someone else comes in over here. Those two people, and this is not like that they're bad people, but for me, where their vision was and where they wanted to take everything versus how I was hired and what I thought I was brought in to do changed substantially. And within 6 months, I was like, look, let's just have the conversation. I'm not for you, and you're not for me. I want you to be successful. I want to be successful. It's a small business, but I knew it was time to go. And you have to know that. You know, you have to lift your head up and look out. Don't be so tip-tapping away and your head down like, I've got a great job. I'm just going to stick here and do that and hope that nobody notices. Like, that's just not how it works anymore. You've got to lift up. You've got to look out. And occasionally, you just got to pivot. You just got to make a decision, like, and say, okay, I know this. I've got this. But what don't I have? What don't I know? And this is where it's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Sure. Yeah. I think the benefit of being at a school this size, and quite frankly, it's what attracted me to it, was the size of it. Like, I didn't want to be in a massive classroom with hundreds of kids. The fact that you get, 20, 25 kids in a class allows that interaction with your professors in a way that you don't get at big schools. And that also requires you then to participate. Like, there's an expectation that you're not just sitting there. You have to actually answer and lean in. And if you don't, it's noticed. It's not noticed. And it's the same thing at work, right? So I think that ability to debate here, have real conversations, and I go back to Civ. Like, there was a lot of debate on, topics to the point where you'd be like, okay, let's all bring it down. It's going to be good. But, there were real debates, and it was expected. You were expected to lean in. You were supposed to question what you were being taught. You were supposed to question why things were happening. I think about, in my mind, like, everyone always thinks of doctors as gods, right? But it's called a practice for a reason. They don't have all the answers, right? So we're all practicing in our craft. We're all practicing to be the best that we can be. And the only way you're going to be the best that you can be is by debating, by interacting, by questioning, by listening. Listening, not a big key. You have to listen and take it in. And you're not always right. And I found in this company when I first got here, my entire senior team hated each other. So cinema was left for dead. It's kind of why I came to this company. Left for absolute dead, right? Nobody's going to the theater during COVID. Studios all shut down. Writer's strike happens after that. And everyone's like, oh, okay, so that part of the ecosystem that I showed you before is dead. And I was like, oh, no. Let me tell you why it's not dead. Because when the CEO called me and said, hey, listen, they need me to find a search for a president and a successor for me at some point, because I'm 6 years older than you and I'm not going to be here forever. I was like, okay. I go, tell me about the company. What are your problems? What's happened? He was like, well, everyone's had it. Like, they have been through the ringer. Like, COVID was bad enough, but then layer on all these other things, all these other problems we've had to endure. So what ended up happening is you get into that mechanism of, it's not me. Sharon's the problem. It's not me. It's just not me. Joan's the problem. Like, I'm doing my job. I'm telling you, I've got this. If we had a better marketing department, then the sales development team would be better. And the sales development team's like, well, the marketing team never gives me good ideas. And the planning and pricing team, by the way, have no idea what's happening in the marketplace. So as a result, I was like, oh my God, what's happening here? But that's what happens, right? In chaos, when everyone is literally fighting because they're fighting for survival. Because there isn't somebody sitting on top saying, hey, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. Ship's going to be righted. It's going to be okay. And when I first came on, I was like, listen to me. Your average audience is 30. 62% multicultural. The average in the U.S. is 42. Our current population diversity is 42. The moviegoer is 62. Average age 30. At incremental scale. Average age of any streaming service is 55 to 57. The NFL is 48. Right? You can't get any of you. We call you the unreachables, by the way. You don't even know this yet because you're not in the workforce, but you have so many names already. You're the unreachables, you're the cord cutters, cord nevers. You are the most elusive group of humans that every marketer is trying to reach to grow their share of market. Just know that about yourselves. Like, they need you. They need all of you. They need your thinking. They need your prowess. They need you in the workforce very badly. So I just throw that out there to you in terms of like the problem solving and how you can kind of tie this all together.
Question over here.
Thank you for being here, Ms. Sullivan. Truly enlightening. I just have a question about kind of one of the problems that I've at least noticed when applying for jobs in the job market, kind of in this hyper tech space. You know, everything's online. You know, LinkedIn's and Indeed's and whatever. Your jumping off point was really fascinating. How your career kind of got started based off of simply networking, you know, and a whim of opportunity. And I know you're a non-traditional social science, you know, you're not a social science major, you're a humanities major in liberal arts. Do you find that that is, networking is the main way you would say that a liberal arts major, non-social science major would be able to kind of jump off their career into business? Because a lot of times in over 100 applications on LinkedIn, companies aren't going to pick the English major over the finance major or the management major or marketing major or whatnot. So is leveraging a network the best way for a liberal arts major to distinguish themselves?
I hear you on the liberal arts, but I'll just tell you my personal opinion is that the whole recruiting process right now is a complete disaster. It's a black hole. You're 100% right. 100 kids, 1,000 kids apply for a job. It goes into a big black hole. I don't even know what these HR, and I don't mean this against HR. It's not actually possible for them to manage the amount of applications that come through this black hole. So I don't know if it's just liberal arts, to be honest with you. I don't disagree with you in certain fields. It will be harder to then match up against somebody who, you know, is the math major if you're applying for a marketing science job. That being said, the networking is your best and, quite frankly, in my opinion, one of the only ways to get in. Like, it is impossible to break through. You just need someone to just give you that first introduction. Use it. Use this network at Providence. Use your parents, use your friends, whoever, like whatever you need to. It is incredibly difficult to break through right now anywhere, and it doesn't matter. I don't care if you go to Harvard, I don't care if you're at Providence. Like, it does not matter. It is just impossible to just go through the normal routing system of applying for a job, which is what they tell you. Oh, you have to apply online. You have to. You have to fill out this application, and then we'll be back to you. You know where they're going to be back to you? Like 6 months from now, after the job's actually never been filled, probably been put to the side. It's a complete and utter disaster. So absolutely network, which is why it's not so much about what you do from 9 to 5. It's what you do from 5 to 9. And you should be doing it all now. Those of you that are juniors and seniors, you need to be doing it now.
That actually leads into my next question, which is, how has the strength of the Providence College alumni network supported your career growth and opened new opportunities?
Well, I'll start with my father, right? You know, I mean, very disappointed that I didn't go into finance, but we got over that pretty quickly. And he was like, oh, you know, you seem to be making a pretty good go of it in this like sort of advertising media thing. Ed Scanlon, who I think has his name on a couple of buildings here and doors over at the Ryan Center. So Ed went to Providence, and we used to refer to him as the whisperer for Jack Welch. And you may or may not know Jack Welch, but he was the CEO of GE. And when I first started at NBC, Jack was the CEO. And he was, I mean, a fireball. I mean, I studied him when I was here. I had the incredible pleasure to meet him a couple of times. I told the story earlier today, just quick. I kind of snuck into a party that I wasn't supposed to be at. Kind of what you need to do. Goes back to your networking question, or you got to figure out how you're going to stand out. So I snuck into an entertainment after party, and Jack Welch was there. I mean, all these beautiful actors and actresses are in there, and I was like, oh my God, Jack Welch is here. So I decided, okay, my grandfather always said, just go up and say hello. There's only two answers, yes or no. They're either going to completely blow you off, or they're going to say hello. Tap him on the shoulder. I was like, Mr. Welch, I'm like, Catherine Sullivan. He goes, with a name like that, how can I not love you? And I was like, great. I ended up talking to him for like 20 minutes. Again, everyone now, I see my senior management now looking over going, how the hell did that kid get in here, and who is she talking to? So from that, I meet Ed. Ed said to me, did you go to Providence College? Are you John Sullivan's daughter? And I was like, oh God, what did I do now? But Ed then started quietly bringing me up to the 52nd floor at NBC. Originally, just randomly would call me. It's like, come on, kid, come on up to my office. I want to hear what's going on. I was like, oh my God. But he truly mentored me in a way that I couldn't have asked. As people found out, people got nervous. I will say there was two sides to that sword for sure. There was the mentoring that he gave me, but then it was also like, oh, she's getting favors from the number 2 guy of our entire company. And in that way, people didn't trust me as much because they were afraid that I would tell him. Not my coworkers, but senior management. I was a kid. I mean, I was maybe 26 years old when this started happening. But, I mean, I spoke to Ed recently passed away, and this past year I talked to him right before he passed, but literally as sharp as a tack, one of, like, a great, great PC alum. But he was a very massive mentor to me. My dad was amazing to me. Always, being a Wall Street guy, but knowing that advertising and marketing was really starting to take off. I mean, it wasn't even covered by the New York Times. Now we have our own section, right? I mean, there's a whole Monday CMO section. There's a whole marketing section on Monday. That did not exist 20 years ago. So that's when like you were hiding under the radar for a while there in marketing, and now all of a sudden you became front and center. You're like, oops, they're going to start paying attention to us. We actually need to make sure that we're doing what we need to do. So I'd say Ed and my dad, but then just the network of, like, I'd be at a cocktail party and kids walk up to me and say, oh my God, you went to Providence. I saw it on LinkedIn, and I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm the class of 2000, or I'm the class of whatever. And I'd be like, oh, hi. And the amount of kids on LinkedIn that reach out to me are amazing. And I will say, even from the marketing class earlier that I taught, the amount of kids that have already sent me emails just saying, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Hope, like to stay in touch. Absolutely. Like, someone helped me, and of course I'm going to help you. And that, I find, is very much of that PC alumni group that if you tap in, they will help.
They're already taking your advice. I think that Dean Early had.
Yeah. Hi, Catherine. Is it Shoe Dog? Is that the name of the night?
Shoe Dog, thank you. I knew it was Shoot In. I was like, because I was just at something.
Shoe Dog.
Shoe Dog, thank you. I was hoping somebody was. I'm like, there's a thing called Google.
I'm on my
day.
phone
Could
Googling
someone
it.
help?
They're all trying to behave and not take out their phones right now. So
Oh, that's true. Okay.
I'm on the side so I can take out my phone. But I just wanted to say, in a full circle moment, so those of you who are finance majors and in the business school, Paul Scanlon from the business school has opened so many doors for our students, and he's Ed's son. So he continues. It's just like a full circle giving back from the Fryer family. I just love that story. Thank you.
He's great.
other questions from the audience? More students. Lots of students here. You have to earn your flip points.
Oh, it's not that hard. Come on, seriously.
Put yourself out there. Yeah.
The short answer is yes. Yeah, when I started, there were no women who were really CEOs at the time. There certainly weren't any in media. There certainly wasn't any at the big media companies at that time or the big agencies. They were, primarily run by men. Yes, there was resistance. I remember when I started at NBC, they were like, so how it works here is you're going to be an assistant for 5 years, and then you're going to go into planning, and after 5 to 10 years there, then maybe, if you're lucky, you become a salesperson. I was like, that is absolutely not my path, and I was selling by the time I was 24. So I definitely made a lot of, I want to say enemies, but there are a lot of people who were not particularly thrilled with me because I just wasn't playing by the rules, and I just was like, absolutely not. But no, there weren't a lot. My father was very supportive of me, but to those I apologize that were in the marketing class. It was my mother in 1972, I was 7, who woke me up, sat me at the edge of her bed, and said, come in here, I want you to watch this. And it was Barbara Walters interviewing President Nixon. She said to me, it's the first woman to ever interview a president. She's like, I just want you to see this because I want you to know you can do anything. If you want to be the president, go be the president. If you want to be an engineer, go be an engineer. If you want to be, a nurse, be the nurse. But if you want to be the doctor, don't let anyone tell you you can't be a doctor. It's yours. don't let anyone stop you. So to have a father who was supportive, a mother who was supportive, who didn't treat me differently from my brother, was definitely a lot that and I think being a swimmer, because we swam with guys, I grew up swimming with, boys and girls together. And so, and having just a brother, I was never intimidated by men, and I just had men who were very supportive of me. And quite frankly, in my career, I hate seeing this, and I've done everything to unwind it, but the women in front of me that were there were so cruel to women below. They liked being the only rooster in the hen house. They were actually some of my biggest detractors, more than the men. My biggest mentors were men, and I've done everything humanly possible to create a lot of mentorship for women so that they don't endure that going further. And I think collectively, like, this isn't about men and women, but we all just have to have each other's back and work together. Diversity is what makes us better. If you are a company of all men or all women or all white people or all black people or all green or yellow, whatever you are, it doesn't work. It's diversity not only in ethnicity and background, but it's also an experience. Like, it's so complex. You saw that slide. It's crazy what's going on. The amount of transformation that's happening in technology requires a lot of different people to come together to solve problems, to work together to make it better. And so that diversity is what's important. So yes, I did. You have to just stand up, fight for yourself, and not be pushed around. And if you're not treated fairly, either go or figure out how to win. Guys are awfully quiet tonight, just by the way. Just saying. There's a lot of you here, but like not a lot of questions. Just saying. Got one in the back.
Question.
One more question.
Bueller.
I'm going to cold call on someone.
Bueller.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, there we go. All right, come on, Bonjour. You
Check.
got it. Yeah. It's so difficult to break in. Entertainment is, without a doubt, one of the most difficult industries, and it is, it's like legacy. It's one of the last few legacy businesses that actually exist, where it actually helps you to be a legacy child than not. To answer the latter part of the question, though, what you're seeing with Amazon buying MGM, and everyone's trying, Google tried to get into the movie business and they quickly failed and shut it down. I do think with tech getting involved, you're going to start seeing more and more in the East Coast, and I also think that there's things like Tribeca Film. Jane Rosenthal is a good friend, and like she left Disney and started that with Bobby De Niro, and like they're very East Coast focused. You should get your daughter connected to them. But so the answer is yes. The long answer is that it's still very LA driven in terms of that community and the homogeneity of it. But you can break in on the East Coast. It's just a little bit more difficult. A lot more docs, a lot more indie films are are in New York and in that little cult that sits there. But by and large, still the big movies are still coming out of those studios that sit in Burbank by and large.
Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking Catherine for her great thoughts today. And congratulations again to Kevin Bongiorno for being the recipient of this year's Fiondella Student Academic Achievement Award. So tonight, each of you demonstrated the importance of having an education rooted in the liberal arts and humanities, and something we take pride in at PC. The skills learned and acquired through the humanities to reason, assess, and problem solve are critical to the success of our business students. To understand the human condition makes us all better leaders in our careers and within our communities. I invite you all to join Father Garrett, Ms. Sullivan, and the planning committee to a light reception in the Fiondella Great Room next door to continue the conversation, to network with one another. You can also, I think the board with your flip points is outside. And thank you again for being here tonight, and have a nice evening.